Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing Blood Debts. It's a young adult paranormal story, also a mystery. It involves witches and witchcraft primarily. It's set in modern day New Orleans. It's a great concept in the story. I think the concept is quite strong, and I think the world building is quite strong as well. The writing in the story lets it down a little bit, so I think the execution lets the story down, lets the characters down a bit as well, and lets down a bit of that world building the author's done. Because the world itself, where this story is set, with the witches and witchcraft, things like that, it's very believable. It feels real in the story. So it's a shame that the writing sometimes doesn't match that. But I do think a lot of people will enjoy this. I do think it's a book a lot of people are going to pick up and read and enjoy. Clement and Christine Trudeau are 16-year-old twins, and they're heirs to a throne their family no longer holds. Their grandmother was queen of the witch council, so it would rule all the witches in all countries. They go by Clem and Chris in this story, by the way, so when I refer to them now as Clem or Chris. So about 30 years ago in the history before this book begins, their grandmother was accused of murder and stripped of her title as queen. So she lost her throne, lost her title, lost her power basically in society, in witch society, and other things happen as well. So the grandfather was brutally killed at that time as well, and so all the children, so Clem and Chris's mother and her siblings, so 5 daughters I think in the family, they were left without a father from then. They were quite young, and so that's developed in them a hatred, I think, or a distrust of what they consider to be normal people, people without magical powers. And Chris and Clem have also inherited a bit of that. They distrust a lot of people because of what happened in their family's past. When we meet Clem and Chris for the first time, they're living in the house with their mother. Their father had died before this book begins. Their mother is quite ill, and Chris and Clem aren't very close. I mean, there's still dialogue and scenes between them, but they're not close, and they feel very separate in their lives. And in their own chapters, their own point of view, we get that feeling as well. But things in their life are going to change very quickly. There's sudden twists and shocks due for them in this story, and they're very well done in the story. The twists and turns at this part of the story early on are very gripping, very well done, and I think that's one of the strengths of the author in this book, is some of those twists and turns, those shocks. They're dealt with very well in the story, and they're very sudden, and they feel very powerful because of that. And what drives this story from that initial twist is the twins and their mother and their whole family, so their aunts, they come to realise that they're in danger. Their family's in danger. Somebody's out to get them. They don't know who. They suspect one person who may be behind it, but they don't know for sure. So all they know is somebody's out to get them, and whoever is out to get them is very powerful. They don't know how powerful. Are they more powerful than this person? They're not sure. They don't know how many people are out to get them. Is it a great plot? Is it a huge scheme that many people are involved in? Or is it one person? Nobody knows at this point. So it feels very threatening for the main characters, and that's very gripping in the story. I think that there's another strength in this story, that the author doesn't give too much away. We learn things as we go on in the story. We learn things as the main characters learn things. Sometimes we learn a little bit here and there when we have chapters from different character point of view, but we don't learn everything, and that adds to the mystery element in this story and makes it a bit more thrilling. There's a lot to like about the concept in this book. We've got magic, we've got witches, we've got a lot of plots and schemes going on power-hungry people in the book as well. We've got danger, suspense, intrigue, a lot of things going on in this story. The author also throws in a bit of romance in the book as well, But that romance sometimes feels a bit forced, a bit sudden, and it loses some of the reality in that. So I think that could have been handled in a different way. The author also includes themes about how minorities are treated in society. We have themes about the fight for social equality and justice, about identity, about finding your true self. All those themes play out throughout the storyline, and they're handled quite well in the book, but sometimes they do pull you out of the main plot. So sometimes they're a bit heavy-handed, I think, or maybe written in a way that doesn't feel organic to the plot. And so it pulls you out of the plot a bit, and you lose the focus of the plot and the tension in the plot when that happens. That's a bit of a shame in the story, because with all the great concepts in the story, all the great things happening with the world building and some of the characters and things like that, it's a bit hard to stay focused in the book throughout the whole story when the way it's written does pull you out of it. The conclusion of the book worked in some ways and not in others. So I think in some ways it just felt a bit awkward. I just felt like some things were stitched together in a strange way. It didn't feel real, didn't feel organic. It felt a bit forced. But in other ways, there are things that happen to some characters that are left off at the end of the book, because I think there's going to be a second book in the series. It just seems like that. But the way that's presented, I want to know what happens to those characters. I want to know what's in store for them. So in that way, the conclusion is very good, very powerful. So it's a mixture for me. In some ways I think, oh, that was a bit of a cop-out. I mean, why was it that way in the book? Why couldn't you think of a different way to have the conclusion? But in other ways, it's like, wow, these characters, there's something up for them later on in the series if there's a second book. And I want to know what that is. I want to know what's in store for those characters, because when they learn some truths, when they learn what happened in the end of this book, their lives are going to change. And I don't know what that means for those characters, how much their lives are going to change, what are they going to do? Because there's certain characters we learn in the book are capable of doing some quite extreme things. And will the events at the end of this book force them to be more extreme? Will it force them to be more manic a bit? Will it force them to be more toned down, to maybe accept things in a strange way and not retaliate? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in a second book in this series, and I wonder if there will be. And if there is a second book, I do think I'll read it. I think this book has intrigued me enough, grabbed me enough to make me want to read more in this series if it does become a series. So for this book, I'll talk about the two twins, Clem and Chris. So first, Clem. I'm on the fence a bit about Clem. I want to like him more as a character. I want to enjoy him more in the book as a character. But there are a few things about his character that just disengage me from him a little bit. The main thing is his anger. He's very angry all the time in this book, and maybe not always for good reasons. I've got to remember that he's a teen character, and sometimes teenagers can have volatile emotions. They can seem manic at times, a lot of ups and downs, very extreme ups and downs. But for him, it just seems to be anger too much too often in the story, and at odd times as well. And he seems very quick to jump into different emotional situations, too quick in my opinion. That felt a bit strange as well. But other aspects to this character are good. I like the fact that he's a strong gay character. I like the fact that that's very positive about this character, and I think that part is written very well. But just other parts to his personality, I think maybe could have been toned down or changed around a little bit to give focus to certain things and not focus to such negative things as anger all the time. Chris as a character, at this stage I enjoy Chris more than Clem. Chris has more challenges to overcome in the story, and those challenges sometimes are quite tough for her to overcome. There's a lot of growth in the character to do that, and I enjoyed that in this book. There are some moments where her struggles in the book feel a bit awkward, the writing of how she goes through them and that progression feels a bit strange. But overall, I think it's an okay balance in the character. I think there's enough there about Chris to enjoy the character in the book quite a lot. And I think at this stage, she's a stronger character than her twin Clem. On the whole, Blood Debts is a good story. It's got a very good concept. The overall plot is good. It's quite fast-paced. So I like that. I like the fact there's not much filler in the story. I like the world building the author's done as well. Even though it's got witches and witchcraft, it's set in modern day New Orleans and it feels real. It feels like everything's real and it feels like it's really happening. And that's a strength in this story. It just shows great writing that the author's able to grab the reader and engage the reader and make the reader believe everything is really happening in the story. I rate this a 4 out of 5. I think this book will attract a lot of readers. I think this book will make readers want more. And I want to see another book in the series. I want to know what happens because there's different things at the ending that suggest big things for other characters in a second book. And I want to know what that means. What happens to those characters in book 2. On my channel, I do review a lot of fantasy books. If you like fantasy books, check out my channel and subscribe. There's also a fantasy playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.